Hello, welcome back to the Caring Conversation studio, live from the NEC in Birmingham. We're here with Ben. Ben, hi, how are you?
Hi, York. I'm doing well, thanks.
Good, good. We're going to talk about well-being today, but first off, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
So I'm Ben Miller. This is my third Caring Conversation. I'm registered manager of Evergreen Care Services, which is a residential dementia home in the Forest of Dean.
Nice. How's business? Is it good?
It's going really well. Since we last spoke, I've changed jobs, so I wasn't there when we spoke last. And yeah, I've been there 4 months now, and it's going really well. I'm really enjoying it.
What's the kind of vibes generally at the moment with the care sector? Have you got good high occupancy? What challenges are coming up at the moment?
Well, social care is on its arse as always, but generally in my area, things are going well. I find in the Forest of Dean, Gloucestershire, where I am, I've got a good feel for things, and high occupancy, good recruitment and retention. I can't say the same for everyone else, but what I do seems to work, so I'm sticking with it.
Cool. Well, let's talk about well-being. So obviously, I'll just open it up to you. You want to talk about well-being?
Yeah. When I sat down before the camera started rolling, you said that when we spoke last time, which was April, I think, in London, I wasn't in the best of places, and things have improved for me. I did a talk going back, I think it was last November time, where I was supposed to talk about a lot of the things that I do. The title of the talk was something like Ben Miller, dad, registered manager, football coach, how many hats can you wear, or something like that. And I devolved the conversation into, well, actually, whilst I wear a lot of hats, it sounds like I've got my stuff together, and I actually haven't. I just kind of bimble my way through life, going through one crisis to the other like everyone else. And I asked the room the question, well, who here actually preaches about well-being? And everyone was like, oh, I do. This is a room full of registered managers, by the way. And they said, okay, how many of you actually look after yourselves? And about 75 people, one person put their hand up. And I was like, exactly, we're all hypocrites. We're all very quick to say, look after yourself, go to the doctor. I'll tell people, go get a massage, go and speak to a counsellor. And actually, I don't tend to do that. And I had not a breakdown per se, but I was really struggling back when we spoke. I was on gardening leave. I was having problems with my previous employer, still am. And I went through a period of after that conversation, about 2 months of not working, waiting to start my new job. And I thought, what am I going to do in that time? Well, I could sit and binge and watch Netflix. I could do a bit of training, but actually what I decided to do was actually practice what I preach and just look after myself. So I started running, which I haven't done for about 10 years. Started trying to eat a bit healthier, started to meditate and do some yoga. And actually, I think you posted our last conversation on LinkedIn about 2 weeks ago. I've lost about 2 stone since then, which nice. I'm really proud of. But when I started work again, one of the things that I decided to do was I wasn't going to let the usual hustle and bustle of work, sitting behind a desk a lot of the time, impede me too much in my well-being journey. And actually, I'm still walking about 2.5 miles a day so I get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning to make sure that I'm going for walks. I'm still doing yoga before I start work. And now I have scope when I say to people who are struggling, you need to be doing this, go to your doctor, actually I'm practicing what I'm preaching now. I'm not being a massively raging hypocrite of doing too much, or sitting behind a desk all day, grabbing a takeaway on the way home, sitting on my backside watching Netflix when I get home, or worse, catching up on my emails and stuff. I'm actually looking after myself, and I feel a lot better. And what that did was it did actually stop me from having a breakdown, an episode of sorts, going into depression. I've been there. I think we've talked about this a couple of years ago. Back in 2021, I really did have a bad episode, and I could feel it coming back in April. And I've managed to avoid that. And things weren't great, and they're still not great now in terms of my life. But actually, I feel pretty good, and that counts for something.
I guess tackling the physical side of it can be really important. How do you then, in kind of a work scenario where, say, for example, I think sort of stopping to eat lunch is quite an important thing to do. Do you have specific techniques that you can share that mean that people understand not to disturb you? Or is it about empowering team members to do things? So how do you keep control of the flood coming towards you?
I think in social care, you can plan things anyway. I mean, I'm guilty. I live by a diary, and I'll go in and go, right, at 10 o'clock I've got to do this, 11 o'clock I've got to do this, 12 o'clock. And everyone in social care knows that it doesn't work that way, because you go, right, I'm going to spend an hour at lunch now, for example, at 12 o'clock, and then just as you're about to bite that sandwich, someone knocks on the door and it's, oh, boss, we've got to do this, or boss, can I talk to you, I'm struggling. So I do make sure that no matter what, I do my absolute best. I have half an hour to myself, and that might be at 10 o'clock in the morning, that might be at 3 o'clock, might even be just as I'm going home. But I have that time to, one, eat something. And one thing that changed the game, which is really bizarre, is I don't actually eat food in work anymore. I make sure that I make my own lunch, mainly because when it's healthier, it's not fortified food, which is what I was having in my previous job. It was a nursing dementia home, so they're fortifying all the food. So I'm eating stuff that's fortified with cream. Very nice, but not healthy. So I'm eating my own food, but also I'm actually leaving the home. So I'm actually going for a walk. 10 minutes, it's about 1,000 steps, something like that, but it's a nice area. We're in the Forest of Dean, it's a beautiful area, so it's a really nice walk. Just do a lap around the town, and I probably look ridiculous in a suit and tie and smart shoes, but it gets me out, I get to clear my head. And also I try and do walking supervisions. So one of the things I picked up from a book that I read was your supervisions and appraisals don't necessarily have to be sat in a formal environment. If the weather's nice especially, grab someone and go, right, let's go for a walk now, and just take them for a 10-minute walk and just chat about things. And that's something I started doing.
We do that at Five on a Bike. We go for walks when we have one-to-ones.
Yeah, and it's really beneficial. When I first started doing it, the team were a bit like, well, this is weird, I'm going for my boss.
They're thinking you're going to kill them or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, especially when the weather's not so good and stuff. And some people don't want to do it. It takes a bit of getting used to. But I find it beneficial, and as well, I'm leading by example. I'm taking people with me. I'm not going, well, you can't do that, you can't go out for a walk. I've always been a big advocate of giving people time outs in work anyway. I mean, I've worked with people who've had mental health problems, whether that's bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder, or even people who are neurodivergent, and I've always been a big fan of sensing that when they're getting wound up, it's just going, right, go outside for 10 minutes, have a fag, have a coffee or something, and just chill out. And again, that's not the sort of thing I would do for myself. And I think a lot of people need to, especially leaders in health and social care, need to step back, have a look at what they're telling people, and try and adhere to that. And people will say, well, I haven't got time to do that, I haven't got time to do yoga, I haven't got time to read a book, meditate. You've got to make time. And I'm sure if you stop scrolling TikTok or stop watching Netflix or whatever, actually you probably would find a good half an hour. I do 10 minutes of yoga a day, that's it. I just do it first thing in the morning when I get in my office, I lock my door, and I do it. There's a video on YouTube that I follow, and that's pretty much it. That's all I do for yoga. But it's cathartic, and it sets me up for the day as well.
See, I struggle with the sort of, rather than the time, I think people say I don't have the time, but I think actually what you mean is you don't have the energy to do it. So it's like, my duties are done at 9 o'clock, right? So, okay, I should probably do some yoga, meditate, I'm not an early riser, unfortunately. I've tried, but it's just not me. It's not me. I don't have the physical energy to do it at that point, and so then it becomes cognitively really difficult for me to do that. So, what works for you, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and walking and stuff, I don't think works for me. But I, try to, in my role, one thing I like to do is to try and give myself 10 minutes at the end of the day where I've got no input. So I can, because that's when I remember the things I've forgotten. If I just sit there, with nothing to do, and just go, oh, cool, what is it? And then so, oh yeah, okay, and I can put that on my task list for the next day or whatever it is that it needs to do, or action that, and I find that quite useful.
It's about habit building. I mean, I'm not a runner. In fact, I hate running. I hate working out. But one of the things that I found was if I would do exercises at home, let's say, my wife's got one of those walking devices, for example, it's like a treadmill and you start walking and it goes. But I just get so bored so quickly, and I'm there like, oh, I can't, even if I've got the TV on, for example. So I found that running, whilst I hate it, I don't go on my phone, I'm not scrolling whilst I'm running, for example. So I had to build habits, and that started with literally just putting a pair of shoes and my clothes by the front door when I got up. I didn't necessarily have an excuse, because I mean, I'm sure you've been in this situation, lots of people have, where they've gone, for example, I'm going to go to the gym, and then you kind of get in or whatever, and you sit down and go, oh, I've got to get up, get my gym clothes on, got to go up, I can't be bothered, I'm just going to sit here, I'll do it tomorrow. So I found that by eliminating as many obstacles as possible, For example, I can't go. Oh well, I can't get my shoes for whatever reason. They're right there by the door. I haven't got a clue. What I found was that once everything was set up, actually, I'd want to do it. Cognitive, like myself, I'd go, oh, I don't want to, but then I go, right, well, it's the stuff's there. I've got to do it. And as soon as I started, I'd feel better. The big challenge for me now is where it's a lot darker and things like that, is whether I can maintain that or not. But time will tell. I mean, so once I've started doing something and built the habits, hopefully I can continue that. And I said I'd encourage anyone who is struggling with their mental health, or even just with the pressures of work, to try something a little bit different. And that might be getting up a bit earlier, going to bed a bit later, or even going to bed a bit earlier, just to see what happens. Because if you'd have said to me this time last year, you're going to be running, I'd have just gone probably, yeah, I wish, because I was the sort of person to drive past people running and go, I should be doing that.
Yeah.
But and my first run, I ran half a mile and literally stopped, bent over double, and I'm there like, I can't do this, I can't do it. And I can now. I can run for about 3.5 miles, which I could possibly do more.
So last year I did a 5k, and when I started, I was like, "There's no way I'm going to run this." Yeah. And then when I actually did run it, I cried because I was like, "I couldn't believe I actually did it."
Yeah.
I think the big takeaway there is, it's the stuff is simple, but it's not easy. So it's like there's the things that you need to do to kind of try to affect your own mental health in a positive way. Yeah, are simple but not easy.
And what works for me, like you said, what works for me, I'm for what it's worth, I'm not saying to people, get up and go for a run, get up early and go for a 2.5 mile walk.
Because I'm not getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, mate.
No, and that's what it's worth. I didn't do that especially. I was getting up at 5 o'clock anyway for work and things like that.
Yeah.
So that was, I just incorporated it into my routine. But for other people, it might just be a case of, like I said, put the phone down and try reading a book. It might be a case of, walking's really healthy. Go for that if you have to, but talk to somebody. Find even if it's finding a mentor or someone you work with or a friend. What I said, just practice what you preach rather than being a massive raging hypocrite.
I've got one final question for you.
Okay.
Takeaways.
Okay.
Plate or no plate?
Oh wow. No plate. It's
No
got
plate.
to. Is it? Whilst it is still a takeaway, I think that getting a plate kind of just destroys the impact. Although it does depend if you're having an Indian or a Chinese, especially if it's got a lot of sauce on it. Probably has to have a plate.
Yeah.
But if we're talking kebabs and burgers and things like that, absolutely not.
See, like kebab, I'd have a safety plate underneath. Yeah, you put it on the plate. Because actually the box maybe hasn't got the structural integrity you need when you're savaging a kebab at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I'm never up at 2 o'clock in the morning, so I wouldn't know anything about that. But no, I see the point.
Yeah, I'm always up at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, no, I've had, in fact, I have had, for my sins, I have had 2 kebabs in the last month or so, and I didn't need a plate for either of them.
I think like a good chicken kebab with lots of salad, I think that's probably quite a healthy takeaway option. Depends if you're just having the doner meat covered in sauce with cheesy chips.
I don't have the salad. That's the problem. No,
I like the salad with it, and a bit. Yeah, it's nice. No. It sort of feels like it's healthy. Bit of pitta,
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, with cheesy chips as well.
Yeah, with cheesy chips, standard. Right, thank you very much for coming, Ben.
Thanks for this, Sean.
We'll be back shortly.